The mining colony on Arcturus 7 was not a place for sentiment. It was a place of red dust, howling winds, and the constant drone of excavation equipment tearing precious minerals from the planet's crust. Darren Cole had been the site foreman for 3 years now, and he had learned to appreciate the harsh beauty of this alien world, a world that tested human endurance with every breath of its thin atmosphere. The indigenous wildlife kept their distance from the human settlements, which suited everyone just fine. The ecological surveys had documented several species, including a pack predator the xenobiologists had catalogued as Lupus arcturus, wolf-like creatures with silvery fur that seemed to shimmer with an almost metallic sheen under the system's twin suns. The miners called them star wolves and generally left them alone. Darren was reviewing the day's extraction reports in his prefab office when he heard the commotion outside. Raised voices, confused shouts, and then something that made his blood run cold, the high-pitched whimpering of animals in distress. He rushed to the door, emergency response training kicking in immediately. What he saw stopped him in his tracks. A star wolf stood in the center of the compound, surrounded by a loose circle of miners who had backed away to a safe distance. But this wasn't an attack. The creature's body language spoke of desperation, not aggression. Her ears were flattened, her tail low, and clutched gently in her jaws was a small pup, its cries piercing the harsh wind. 2 more pups huddled at her feet, their fur matted and dirty, their small bodies trembling. "Nobody move," Darren commanded, his voice cutting through the confusion. He activated his translator implant and stepped forward slowly, hands visible and non-threatening, the star wolf's amber eyes locked onto his. There was intelligence there, deep, ancient intelligence that the surveys had barely scratched the surface of documenting. She took a careful step toward him, then another, closing the distance between them with deliberate intent. She was choosing him. Specifically him. Darren's mind raced. Star wolves were fiercely protective parents. For one to bring her pups into a human settlement, something had to be catastrophically wrong. He knelt down slowly, making himself less threatening, and extended one hand palm up in a universal gesture of peace. The mother wolf, Darren found himself thinking of her as Vera, after the star system's ancient designation, gently set down the pup she'd been carrying. The little creature couldn't have been more than a few weeks old, its eyes barely open, its breathing labored and raspy. Sick. They were sick. Vera nudged the pup toward Darren with her nose, then looked up at him with eyes that pleaded across the barriers of species and evolution. Her message was unmistakable. "Help them, please. Get me Dr. Yenna," Darren said quietly to his second-in-command. "And bring the veterinary supplies from the biolab. Move fast, but don't startle her." He stayed perfectly still as Vera gathered her other 2 pups and pushed them closer to him. The mother wolf was taking an enormous risk, trusting the aliens who had invaded her world, hoping that the human's technology could save what her instincts could not. Dr. Yenna arrived within minutes, her medical scanner already active. She approached carefully, following Darren's lead in projecting calm confidence. Her scanner flickered over the pups. "Respiratory infection," she murmured. "Probably bacterial. The atmosphere here can be harsh even for adapted species. They need antibiotics, fluid therapy, and warmth." Vera watched as the humans worked, her body tense but not aggressive. When Dr. Yenna carefully lifted the first pup to examine it more closely, a low growl rumbled from the mother's chest. But she didn't attack. She was allowing this, trusting them. "We can save them," Darren said, looking directly at Vera. He didn't know if she could understand his words, but perhaps she could read his tone, his body language, his intent. "We will save them." Over the next 72 hours, Darren's office was transformed into a makeshift veterinary ward. The mining operation continued around them, but the heart of the colony had shifted to this small space where 3 tiny lives hung in the balance. Vera never left. She lay outside the office, her massive body blocking the entrance, watching through the transparent door as the humans administered medications, provided oxygen support, and carefully fed the pups with nutrient solutions. The miners brought her food, synthetic meat from their stores, which she accepted with dignified caution. On the second day, the smallest pup began to respond, its breathing easing, its eyes brightening. By the third day, all 3 were showing signs of recovery, playfully tumbling over each other while Dr. Yenna monitored their progress. When Darren finally opened the door to return the pups to their mother, Vera's reaction was something he would remember for the rest of his life. She carefully sniffed each pup, licking their faces, her tail beginning a slow, uncertain wag. Then she looked up at Darren, and in that moment, something fundamental shifted between their species. She pressed her head against his hand, a gesture of trust, of gratitude, of recognition. "You're welcome," Darren whispered, scratching behind her ears the way he once had with dogs on distant Earth. Vera gathered her pups and began to trot away from the compound. At the edge of the perimeter, she stopped and looked back. Her eyes met Darren's one last time, and he could have sworn he saw understanding there, a promise. In the months that followed, the Star Wolf packs near the mining colony never threatened the humans. Occasionally, miners would find offerings left near the perimeter: fresh game, unusual minerals, even what appeared to be medicinal plants. The xenobiologists were baffled, but Darren understood. Vera had spread the word among her kind. These humans, these strange aliens with their machines and their medicine, could be trusted. They had shown mercy when asked. They had saved the helpless when there was nothing to gain. That was what humans did. That was what made them different. That was why, when the Galactic Council later questioned Earth's application for membership, citing humanity's aggressive nature and rapid expansion, it was the Arcturus 7 Star Wolves, recognized as a protected sentient species, who vouched for them. Their testimony was simple but profound. They saved our children when they had no obligation to do so. Judge them by that. Darren Cole never considered himself a hero. He was just a foreman who had done what any decent being would do. But in that moment of connection with Vera, he had represented the best of humanity: compassion, ingenuity, and the willingness to help. Even across the vast divide of species, in the end, that made all the difference.